Welcome to Joyful Living Podcast, and welcome to episode 3 of my interview with Angie Welch Gilliam. You know, guys, if you have not watched episode 1 and episode 2 with this young lady, please go back and watch those because she's got a powerful testimony of a near-death experience. And we typically have one show with each guest, and it's about 30 minutes, but I wanted you all to be able to hear her testimony and to feel what she has gone through to get where she is today. So guys, if you don't know who she is, I need you to go back and watch episode 1. Go back and listen to episode 1. Listen to episode 2. Watch episode 2. And now we're about to begin episode 3. So Angie, you've been in ICU for a month. You've been to a rehab center. You had to learn how to swallow again. You're at home now. How did being in a wheelchair affect you emotionally and spiritually?
Emotionally, I still couldn't really accept the fact that I couldn't walk. So I was really, really emotional because I couldn't believe that I was in a wheelchair and that I couldn't get up and walk and do what I needed to do and go where I needed to go without assistance and help. Spiritually, it took a toll on me at one point because through all my faith and knowing and trusting and believing in God, I also had those moments where I doubted God and I lost my faith because I was in that wheelchair, and all I could remember is God telling me I was going to be okay, but I was still in that wheelchair. So I kind of lost my way a little bit going through that.
So would you say that you were possibly even angry with God?
Definitely. I was no possibility. I was really upset and angry with God because he said he was going to take care of me and watch over me and get me through this. But yet and still, I still couldn't function. My legs wouldn't work. My feet wouldn't work. And my speech was still very slurred, and I couldn't do anything for myself at that point. Still, I still needed everybody to take care of me. Mm-hmm. Anybody that knows me, I'm about as independent as you can get. I have been independent since I started walking, as my mama said. She said, you have always been independent, and a person that's that independent, it's very hard to get to that point where somebody else has to take care of you.
So, you read my book, Can These Bones Live Again? Matter of fact, you told me you were studying and then read it again. But I'm very independent too. But what I learned through my independence and all of my 11 orthopedic surgeries, and now 12 because I had a surgery this past summer. It was on my elbow though, it wasn't on my knees. Yeah. But I learned that in order for God to be able to use me, not lose me. In order for him to use me, he had to break my independent spirit. And the way he broke it was teaching me that I couldn't do it all on myself. That I needed him first and foremost, but that I also needed other people. Yes. Because every time I had to have a surgery, guess what? I needed somebody to take care of me. Somebody to go to the store for me. Somebody to help me. Where I had taken on this mantra in my 20s because I was angry little something. That I couldn't trust nobody. And if it was going to get done, I'd do it myself.
Right.
I don't need you, and I don't need your help.
I've been like that too my whole life.
But God said, let me show you something, honey.
You're not in charge.
That's not how it works. And so now you know that if you follow me, I'm constantly preaching and teaching about we need each other. And that is one of our primary purposes here, is just to help somebody else along the way. So if you find that you're struggling in life in every area of your life, I want you to take inventory of that independent spirit of us. Yes, we want to be independent. We want to have a job. We want to be able to self-sufficient and take care of ourselves. But independence to the point where you won't accept help from other people can be your downfall.
Yes.
And you're going to keep going through that lesson until you learn it.
Yes.
So I don't know how to put it any other way than that. You're going to keep going through it until you learn the lesson that we all need help that we all need each other, and that you gotta, when somebody offers a help, accept it if you know you need it.
Yes. Yes.
Because saying no just because I'm independent and I'm pride, that pride, you can't receive what God has for you when you got that kind of pride. And a lot of times we become prideful and self-sufficient because we're hurting, regardless of what the situation was, some kind of childhood trauma. But when we are feeling hurt, we are feeling ashamed, we are feeling pain, we become prideful in taking care of ourselves. I don't need y'all. Everybody that I've known, that I trusted, has hurt me. And what that builds is a spirit of pride. And God can't use us when we're that kind of proud. And we'll say we're saved and we're believers or whatever, but he cannot use us the way that he needs and wants to use us when we got that kind of pride. So he will break you down.
Just exactly what she just said. I think she was talking about me, because that's kind of what I didn't experience all these years, going through that kind of thing, because that's what made me so independent, that I can do it all by myself. I used to think that way.
Yeah.
But by the time I got out of that wheelchair, because it were times when I didn't think I was, and then God showed back up just like he always do.
Ain't it amazing though, how he'll tell you something, but then he get quiet.
Yeah.
I think he get quiet because he just want to see what you're going to do.
He's testing us to see if we're going to hold on to our faith and trust in him.
I saw a sermon last Sunday. Whew. When I tell y'all, Dr. McNair at Mount Calvary Word of Faith in Raleigh, North Carolina, when I say that man preached the paint off the walls. He preached the paint off the wall because he talked about faith coming. It's like, but in order for you to get more faith, you got to keep going back to the word. So faith cometh. If faith cometh, if you keep turning back to the word whenever you're experiencing a trial. But when we're experiencing a trial, we get discouraged and we start reading the very thing that's going to see us through.
Yeah.
We get angry, we get frustrated, we get mad. But if we keep reading the word, we keep turning those pages, we'll realize that faith keeps coming. Faith keeps coming. Faith keeps coming. Even when the enemy keeps showing up, the faith keeps coming.
Without my faith, where would I be?
So when you were feeling like you were in the valley alone, and that God had kind of deserted you, still in this wheelchair, how did you get your joy back?
I think it was when my therapist was there, and all of these things just started coming into play. Because my speech started to get better. I got to the point where I was able to grip the wheelchair, not the wheelchair, but the walker with my hands. So I was starting to feel good with my hands again, because it wasn't a lot of pain when I would grip up to the walker. So I could pull myself up out of the wheelchair to get up to the walker. At the same time, my therapist is coming and we're doing all these exercises for my legs. And one day in particular, I remember we were up against the wall. He had put me up against the wall. He had the belt on me. He's controlling this whole thing. But it's an exercise. He had me up against the wall. And he said, if you can put yourself up against that wall and you can steady yourself, that's progress. So he put me up against the wall. And I'm like this. And he said, I'm going to let you go. And when he let me go, my knees didn't buckle.
Yeah, that just did something to me. When he let me go, my knees didn't buckle.
Yeah, because that's what it always did before. I would collapse. But all the therapy that we had been doing, it was giving me the strength in my legs, because I was able to use them, because they actually told me that I may never walk again. And that if I did, I may be using a walker or a cane or something, because from their point of view, they said that it didn't look good for me to get functionality back with my legs.
Wow.
And my feet, that I may never walk again.
But guys, did y'all hear that? It's like all the work that she was putting in, the physical therapy, she was making progress, even though she didn't realize she was making progress. And a lot of times in our life, we're making little bitty little tiny steps, but they're so tiny, they're so minute, we don't even realize that we're making progress. But if we stand still for a minute and just look back to where we came from, we'll realize just how far we've come. Because you mind you, she didn't she didn't just take off walking. She said she could feel her hands again to grip the walker. And when you said that, it reminded me that the first thing that you lost function of was your hands. But that was the first thing that you got back.
Yeah, so I could touch, so I could actually do something with them. So it was
you could brush your teeth.
Yes. Oh, I love brushing my teeth. My dentist tell me now my teeth are good. You really take good care of your teeth because I brush them all the time. So all in all, by this time though, that day was the beginning of me lifting that cloud off of me. Because I was like, God, you did what you said. I just got to try to remember what you done told me and hang on in there. And in his time, because this was me thinking in my time frame that I should be walking, I should be doing this, and I should be doing that.
Yeah.
That was all me.
Yeah.
And it's not about me. It was his time frame that I needed to understand what he was giving me back a little bit at a time.
Yeah. And I remember seeing you once in the wheelchair. And again, I've known you my whole life, and as I said in one of the previous episodes, you were like light. You always had this light to you. And my sister and I drove by, and I hadn't seen her because I didn't live in the area. I was at home visiting, and we were on the way to a store, and I knew you were out the hospital, but I didn't know you were in a wheelchair. And when I drove by you, when we saw you sitting there, I saw that cloud, and I wanted to talk to you, but I couldn't. It's like, because that shook me to my core, because you weren't the Angie that I had always known since being a little girl.
Yeah.
And I just thinking about that now, my heart is breaking over, cracking, because when I looked over there and I said, Val, is that Angie? And she said, yeah, it is. So I can't even begin to imagine what you were going through, because just seeing you, it broke my heart, because I knew who you would be in every day of your life. And to have to go through that and to experience that. And as I said, when I looked over there and I saw that cloud, because you didn't look like the Angie that I had known my whole life. And I didn't see that light beaming from you as I had always seen.
Yeah. Yeah. That was hard to, sorry.
Oh, no, don't apologize. Tears are so healing and so cathartic, and they are, I don't have any shame about crying. Like, you know, you watch my in the line, you know I cry in a minute.
I do.
But now the difference is, you know, when I was younger, my tears were sadness. But now my tears are nothing but straight joy.
Yeah.
Because if you had known where I came from,
yeah,
what I've been through, and even on the days when I'm hobbling and something hurting, whether it's my left knee, because my left knee still hurts, or if I'm having issues with my hip or whatever may be going on, when I cry tears now, that's joy.
Yeah.
It's like, because I know where I came from, and I know how bad it has been. And I don't even know how bad it can get.
Yeah.
I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
But I know where I came from, and I know how sad I was at times.
Yeah.
But now the joy that I got, the world didn't give it to me, and the world can't take it away. Everything about me is joyful living, because the things that God has done for me, you can't even imagine the valley that I've been in. Mm-hmm. We couldn't imagine the valley that you've been in. And I've known you every day of my life, and I had no idea.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that is really important for us, that we not make assumptions about people just because we know part of their story. We know part of their journey. I don't care if you're your sister or their brother or their mother. You don't know the half of it.
Exactly.
Because I can't tell you everything. It ain't enough time in this world to tell you everything I felt and been through. And I know the same is true for you.
Exactly. Yeah. That's right. Because once I got, and during this time frame as well, I was on the verge of losing my job, because when you're out of work for 6 months, you're terminated.
Yep.
So my fear was that I wasn't going to be able to get back to my job. And I was like, I can't lose my job. So I got to get out of this wheelchair.
And that's the same company you work for now.
That's the same company I work for now. And to add to how good God is, this was like April when I first took my first step and started walking again.
Uh-huh.
I started taking my steps in April. Well, I was going to have to be back to work in June, or I was going to lose my job. So in April, I started taking my steps. It was a struggle for me to walk for a long time, but I was walking. Like you said, that cloud was starting to move farther and farther away, because God kept showing me, I told you I had you, so I still got you. And I would take the steps and I'd do better. Well, when it came to that time of the year, when it was time to go back to work, my job, it was Tyco Electronics back then, because they switched their names. But my supervisor and all the managers and HR and everybody that was there at that time, they let me come back to work on half days. They let me come back to work and work in this safe launch area where they was bringing me my work. They was moving my work for me. They had somebody helping me get to and from to punch in and out the clock.
Wow. You know what? That's some kind of favor, because technically if you need that much assistance, you're not able to work.
Right.
But for them to be able to like, come, we're going to help you get to your area, your work area. We're going to bring your work to you. We're going to take the work away. Then we're going to go help you punch out. That ain't nothing but favor, because most jobs, especially if it's manufacturing or some type of industry, if they got to help you that much, they're not going to let you work.
That's God that did that, because by them doing that, I was able to keep my job. I started out with the 4-hour days, 6 hours, until I worked my way up to 8-hour days again. And during this whole time, my supervisor, Tony Smith at the time, and all my coworkers, they helped me so much, because it was certain things that they would be like, let me get that for you. I got this. You can't lift that. They would move stuff over. They did that for me.
How long did they do that?
Oh, my God. As a matter of fact, people still do it for me now. Because through all of that, you know, even with the GBS, since that point till this time, till last year, I've had 3 major back surgeries.
Yeah.
So even the nerve damage from the GBS, I have nerve damage from all 3 back surgeries. And most of it affected my left side. Your nerves only heal 1 centimeter a day. Did you know that? So when you have nerve damage, and if it's a possibility they're going to heal, it's only 1 centimeter a day healing. And
I don't know how long, if y'all know what a centimeter looks like, but it's a fraction of a fraction.
Right. So, you know, all these years on top of the GBS and 2 major surgeries, I've been cut here, and I got cut in the back here a year ago. I've had a lower back surgery.
I remember when you had the surgery here and the lower back one.
Yes. So all of that caused a lot of nerve damage. My foot hurts so bad all the time now that it's just painful to walk. But I'm walking.
Boy, people don't even realize.
I'm walking on my own every day. And even though there's pain, so be it, I can walk. I ain't in no wheelchair, because I've been in a wheelchair like all 3 of those back surgeries. I was in a wheelchair or walker, because I couldn't walk at all. And God keeps getting me out of those positions and putting me back on my feet. So now I don't complain, because I'm having some pain.
Yeah. I remember when you had the neck surgery and they went to a front entrance, and I saw you at a healing service at the well in Wanacole with the full brace on your neck. But I was so happy to see you, because all I had been seeing was the post, and you posted the day of your surgery. You posted when you had your neck thing out. But to see you out and about and up on your feet, I knew you were okay.
Exactly. So that cloud is, if there's no cloud, and I'm like you, my tears are tears of joy, because even a while back when I was just crying, when you was talking about that, I remember that, and I remember that feeling, but the joy that I get from that time to now is nothing but joy.
Yeah.
Because I can walk, I can talk, I can breathe on my own, I can do everything anybody else can do to a certain degree.
I can walk, I can talk, I can breathe on my own.
On my own.
The things that we take for granted.
The things that we take for granted. And sometimes my speech may slur. Sometimes I may not be able to get my words together because my mouth may lock up on this side and I can't get it all out the way I want to and speak the way that I want to. But I can talk.
If we just be grateful for that, whatever that we have. It might not look like what we want it to look like. It may not be exactly the way we want it to. But if we can just be grateful for what we have and have some joy around the life that we experiencing now. Because guys, when I tell you, it could be so much worse. So much worse. It really can be. And you were like, you don't know my story. You don't know all of my story, and you don't know all of Angie's story, but you've heard part of it to know. There are people out here that are going through it, and the purpose of this is to let you know that if we made it, that you can make it too. That if you put your hand in God's hand and you trust him with all your heart, and just know that no matter what it turns out like, if you still breathing, you blessed. You better than blessed. So guys, y'all know this is like episode number 3. We initially spoke, and I was like, can you do a 30-minute interview with me? But I started to think about that. I'm like, I've known Angie all my life, and I know a lot of her story, but I know what I know ain't even a fraction of it. So I sent her a message, and I said, you know what? I want people to hear this. So you take your time and you tell this story. So this story has been 3 episodes long. So Angie, and there's still a lot of things that I could come back and talk to you about. We could do a whole nother series. We could do the series of Summer of Angie. Definitely. It's like, because, and that's based off of what I know. Because when I tell you, the sister been through the ringer, and she mentioned in episode number 1, her mom has dementia and has had it for 9 or 10 years now. So we could come back and do a whole interview on that. Think about that, because I would love to do that. And I would love to do it, because my honey, that was a battle right there, from seeing a independent woman like that go from taking care of herself to where she's at today. And we all know honey because she posts about it on Facebook. Now, I knew Angie's mom growing up, but I didn't know her that well. She's an older woman, and again, Angie's a few years older than me. And I went to school with Gary. But then he's older than I am, and Barry's younger than I am. So it's like I didn't really go to school with any of you guys. So I didn't really know your mom, but I knew her. Exactly. It's like, but to have watched her these last few years on Facebook, which everybody know honey now. We all love her. We're like, what's honey doing today? Exactly. Because honey will tell you sometimes. Yes, she will. But if you had to minister to somebody who is facing the biggest battle of their life, maybe they've had a cancer diagnosis, or they've had experienced an accident or something that's left them wheelchair bound, or whatever it may be, if you had to minister to them right now, what would you tell them? I would tell you, first of all, to pray. And during your praying, remember to have faith. Remember to trust. Everything you're going through for a reason. Everything that we go through is for a purpose, God's purpose, not your own, not somebody else on the outside. Just remember that everything we go through is a part of our journey in life. And a lot of times we go through things. For me personally I think some of the things I went through, it wasn't for me. It had nothing to do with me. I think it had to do with trying to get somebody else to where they needed to be when it comes to having faith and trusting and believing in God. Our purpose here on this earth is to serve God and to love thy neighbor, help thy neighbor. We have gotten past
all of putting God second to everything and everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
When we start putting God first, and I know everybody has their own way of believing that things happen because they didn't do this, or she did that, or he did that, and he's a sinner, she's a sinner. It ain't always about that either, that you end up with cancer, you end up with Guillain-Barré syndrome, you end up having all these back surgeries and anything else that comes to you. If it comes to you with God on your side, he will get you through it. But you got to trust in him. You got to put God first. You need to go to the Bible, start reading the word so you can get an understanding of the word and ask God to give you that understanding. Because if you don't get God's understanding of the word, you're just going to keep floating around in the clouds, so to speak, as we were just talking about. But until you understand the word, then you're never going to understand why you may be going through what you're going through. But just know that when you're going through anything as traumatic as cancer or anything major going on in your life, take it one day at a time. Never give up. Keep on pushing. And even when somebody or anybody telling you there's no hope and that you're not going to make it or you won't be able to do this, don't listen to that. Focus on what's between you and God and live your life accordingly, like love. Love is the key to everything. I love everybody.
Yes, she does. She always has.
I love people. I love getting to know people, and I don't judge because I don't like to be judged, but I know people judge me. But when I got past that too, I was able to tell my story. Because before I didn't tell my story because I was shameful or because I was worried about what somebody else was going to say. But not now. So just hold on to faith. Hold on to God's unchanging hand. No matter what you're going through, he will help you through it.
You said something that I just want to expound on for just a moment. And she said that it wasn't a punishment. When I finally figured out that what I was not going through, because when I was a teenager, I thought I was being punished. I actually used to pray, God, I'm sorry. I don't know what I did, but please forgive me, because I thought I was being punished because of, the neglect that I experienced, because of the sexual assault I experienced, because of having arthritis as a 12-year-old. I thought I was being punished. I thought God hated me. But when I learned that my life wasn't a punishment, that it was all about purpose.
Yes.
And that I had to go through all of those things so that we could be sitting here on a couch talking about the joy that we have and being able to minister to someone else in their time of need. That your life, Rick Warren said it perfectly in the Purpose-Driven Life. The first line, and I talk about this everywhere I go, the first line on the first paragraph in chapter number 1 says, it's not about you. If we can ever get to the point where we realize that this life, that this journey is not about you, and realize that my life is just to help somebody else along their way, then we can experience some of the joy that God has for us. And just remember that everybody that is in the Bible, from Joseph to Paul to Peter, Moses, all of those guys, the thing that they have in common, they suffered tremendously, but they had the favor of God on their life. That favor ain't fair. And I know that we are both highly favored and blessed.
Totally.
So guys, thank you for watching Enjoyful Living Podcast. Whatever platform you are watching or listening today, please subscribe so that you can continue to hear great stories like Angie's. We're going to be bringing them to you at this point, maybe twice a month. I don't know. But Angie's episodes run the whole month. So please go back and watch episode 1. Watch episode 2 and then come back and listen to episode 3. I promise you, you're going to be blessed by this. So, guys, thank you for watching Joyful Living. Angie, gosh, thank you so much for sharing your story.
So very welcome.
And we're going to get her back on to talk about the journey of dementia with not just her mom, but multiple people in her family have dementia. So we're going to bring her back on and talk about that, because we want you to live with more joy. We want you to experience the joy that God has for you, but we cannot do that if we are walking around heavy laden, burdened with our head hung down because of shame and guilt and embarrassment. So guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I will talk to you soon. I love you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody.